welcome to
Red, White, and Bi,
episode 25.
coming at you with a podcast about politics that hopefully is a little humorous, a little insightful, and full of critical thinking. Ash, what has happened this week?
Oh, a lot of shit.
What hasn't happened this week?
I was editing and uploading our last episode just as news of Maduro's kidnapping came in. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, we wrapped that up at like the worst possible timing. My phone started blowing up with all these push notifications. And I think kidnapping is both appropriate and hilarious and also not accurate, but it is. So let's talk about what happened in Venezuela, man.
So supposedly, the Biden administration had a 1.5-year-old indictment. And, you know, I don't know how much they have to, bend things, but this is supposedly in line with our laws. People are complaining, however, that this doesn't fit international law.
First of all, there's no such thing as international law. There are war crimes. There's the Geneva Convention, which is an agreed upon standard of behavior that I think is that associated with the UN, but it's not like a fucking international law. Who enforces international law? Nobody. And also, this is unprecedented, right? I myself reacted with this feels like a kidnapping. This feels weird. This is we're not officially Congress approved at war with Venezuela. I've never seen a leader of a recognized country just snatched the way we did. It had a really bizarre feeling when it was happening. But then, to your point, details started to come out where he was actually indicted by the Biden administration, which is wild to me that you can bring charges against somebody like Maduro, who I guess I don't know for sure, but presumably has never set foot in the United States. How can there be crimes, United States crimes, that hold any sort of legal water for somebody who's pulling strings from afar?
As Marco Rubio points out, though, Biden supposedly had made a deal with Maduro that if he gave his nephews back, because they had arrested his nephews, and I believe they were in the United States, that he would basically stop all this trafficking and money laundering. And Maduro got his nephews back and just kept doing the same thing, and I think they...
But again, that in and of itself is not a crime, and trafficking and money laundering happening in Venezuela, or being, orchestrated from Venezuela, is not a crime in America. My degree in law is a little rusty, so...
Well, they are trafficking drugs into the United States, which is a crime. And the other thing is, apparently, Maduro had to create cartels because the economy is so bad there. They had to do something. Even, he's probably he was finally losing some weight himself, you know? You're starving your people, but then the economy's so bad, you're finally oh man, we gotta do something for the elites.
Yes.
Our cat right now is lying on his back being adorable. And my thought is, zoo animals are one thing, but your pets are another.
Ooh, buddy.
And these people have been forced to eat their pets, and I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I know there's no sort of economic slouch in the world that... I would chop off my arm and feed it to my cat before I would eat.
I'd eat Maduro, so I'm glad that they nabbed him in that regard.
Yeah, and so how's that progressing? I've seen some pictures of his walk of shame. I think he had a bag over his head during or no, it was a blindfold because we're not gangsters, quote unquote. But yeah, he was his vision was obstructed while he was being transported, and then they walk him through with cuffs and officers. So he appeared in court, is that right?
Well, I don't even know if he's appeared in court yet. I don't know if he's been indicted, obviously, but I don't know if he's
I feel like he had some sort of
and all that.
I don't know my legal terms, but an arraignment or something. I feel like he had some kind of preliminary appearance.
Because I'll be honest, my boss asked me about this, and I said, I think there's idiots on both sides. because
sure.
I said I have no love lost on dictators, but I also don't care if people take or traffic drugs. So the whole thing is a little bit weird to me. But if I were going to kidnap a dictator and I was going to take him up in a helicopter, I wouldn't be transferring him for an indictment. As you point out, there's no international law, so I'd Pinochet him right out.
Pinochet.
It's a lot cheaper, especially for the American taxpayer who is getting defrauded left and right. So,
yeah, at the end of the day, because this is something that is near and dear to my wife's heart, and by function of knowing her has become near and dear to mine, we're paying for this.
It says that somehow Venezuela's not involved in the drug trade because the UN says they're not involved in the UN.
I don't really understand the charges. I don't really understand what's supposed to happen if he's convicted. I don't know what the long-term plan is for Maduro himself. However, for the country, they seem to be taking it in stride. Like, people are celebrating. There's already at least serious talks of a replacement leader. If I don't know if that's actually happened yet or not. Like, what's Venezuela looking like right now?
All that I can tell so far is that the opposition that essentially won a Nobel Peace Prize for opposing Maduro, even given these conditions, is likely slated to replace him. But if the United States is smart about things, they won't put her in. They will actually let the people vote. And if she wins, or if, whoever won the last election wins, that person will become the president of Venezuela. It's the only decent and right thing to do for the people there, is my humble opinion. But before we go further, I have to tell Hannah that she stumbled upon something. I don't know if you've even seen this clip, but have you seen the juxtaposition clip between a clip from Chappelle's show and what Marco Rubio actually said about this?
No. What? No. Oh my God. This is exactly what I was saying. Does international law even exist? Exactly. I love that so much. And it very much smacks of, I don't really care, Margaret. Like, I feel like this administration is just saying the quiet thing out loud so far, at least in those two ways. Like, I don't really care if the UN doesn't say that there's a drug trafficking problem in Venezuela. Like, there fucking is. And someone should.
And here's the thing. The UN lies about everything. They lie about fucking UNRWA schools and whether or not there are terrorists in their organizations and whether or not the Red Cross is raping people after natural disasters. Fuck the UN. Why do we fund them? That's my question.
I feel like the UN was a good idea. I feel like it was founded with good intentions, and like I feel the spirit of my, grandparents' generation post World War II. Like, I get what they were going for, but it's a colossal failure, and it kind of like reminds me of socialism a little bit. Like, it sounds great on paper. And I gotta say, I think it's funny to make that comparison now, today, in 2026, because in my weird little Christian school growing up, there was like a history social studies teacher who was convinced that the UN was communist and that they were invading America at like any given time. And he would have all these like shady, weird photographs of UN vans parked in US parking lots. The trail of his logic makes zero sense. But, you get a story like this and you look at the fact that people like, Palestine and like countries that are very poor in human rights are like have chairs on the UN. And so you have like France and the US and the United Kingdom are like the minority at the UN right now. So it's like, what the fuck does the UN even mean?
And they're on the Human Rights Council.
Yeah.
Countries like China. And
I was going to list off some countries, but let's be honest, I don't actually know.
And whose idea was the UN? The globalist, communist piece of shit, FDR.
Ash's favorite president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I hate the
as we
UN.
affectionately call him, Hot Wheels. Take that out.
No. Well, here's what really gets me is that the UN is like a push for a globalist thing. Like, when you think about it, It's like, wait a minute, why are we governing, like, as buddies, especially buddies with enemies? China's not our friend.
No.
Why are they on the Human Rights Council? Your whole party is
China
bullshit.
is still genociding, ethnically cleansing Uyghurs.
Yep.
Like, currently, today, like, check your calendar. It's still happening. They're in fucking concentration camps.
To me, the UN is like a party that your mom put together for your birthday. She doesn't care that she invited the kid that gives you and all your friends wedgies. She just like threw it together, and now you're all hanging out pretending to be friends that day because your mom's watching and their moms are watching.
It reminds me of the summer I turned 13 and we had to invite the entire grade because it was like a rule so no one felt left out, and like my bullies were there and stuff. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the summer I turned pretty, like as a joke.
Ooh, not in this house.
No. But all that to say, like, I don't give a shit about the UN. I don't give a shit about NATO. I don't want to be involved in anything. Like, we're our own country.
North Atlantic
Treaty organization.
What's the trade? Oh, NAFTA.
NAFTA.
I'm mixing up my acronyms. Speaking of mixing up my acronyms, we have left this out, I think, of the last couple episodes. I'm drinking a chocolate orange old fashioned with some delicious walnut bitters. Really like it. What do you got there, Ash?
I'm drinking, again, a rum and coke because I had been drinking the bourbon and now my ulcers are affected, I think.
Aw. So rum is the safe drink.
Rum's the safe drink for tonight because I can't have the glutens or the yeast.
Aw.
See, I said gluten. We have a joke where we pronounce gluten, and I just said it for real
Because and
complete strangers.
Total sidebar here, but like we talked about this the other day. It's to the point where I have to stop, like even for a split second in my head when I'm in public and I'm about to say gluten, because we say gluten so often,
like as a joke.
that I don't even fucking remember which is correct. Anyway,
all this to say, here's just a general question, Hannah.
okay.
How do you feel about the United States doing things this way? Like, let's say we don't get into a war. We just take everything. We just take Maduro. We take Greenland. And...
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about Greenland.
Yeah. And for, let's say, for Venezuela, because you asked, like, what is happening, you know, like, what is Trump doing? He's at least meeting with oil executives. And he's saying, you can revamp your economy by using this oil. Like, you've got to utilize what you have. So to me, that doesn't sound like what people had accused him of, just taking it to take the oil. I could see, if I help you rebuild your economy, let's take a little something for us. But it doesn't sound like it's all ill-intentioned, like I'm just going to take it and there's however many Venezuelans who are just going to starve as a result.
It's definitely not as simple or evil as I feel like the left is trying to make it out. I don't think it's all high morals by any stretch of the imagination. It's hard for me to have an opinion about a situation like this in general, like going forward in the future, because this is totally unique to me and weird, and I'm still kind of like grappling with it a little bit. But as far as this situation in 2026 is going, with Trump as president and Maduro as the Venezuelan deposed leader, I think it's going better than I expected when I first heard the news break.
Yeah.
It seems like Venezuelans are happy. It seems like there is a reasonable road forward instead of just creating like this weird power vacuum. I feel like there is a lot of hope for Venezuela that they should have, like, justifiably. I think if I were to make any sort of comment about the future or this sort of behavior in general, it scares me. Like, we've mentioned many times, there's no congressional approval of war. The indictment seems like a fine technicality at best.
Yeah.
I really don't like the use of resources as far as taxpayer money goes. I think it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I would say that at least we didn't invade on the ground and go to war with Venezuela. You know, he kidnapped their leader, and in Venezuela and Iran particularly, I think there's less of a chance of creating a power vacuum because you at least have opposition people, and they could do a special election. The people of Venezuela would be really happy about that, I think, because the last time they voted, they didn't get who they voted for. They just got Maduro again. And then in Iran, obviously they want their monarch back. So there's no power vacuum there either. However, I think it's kind of interesting to think about the fact that Trump doesn't believe in free trade. That's why there are tariffs. So my wonder is, he's got Stephen Miller posting about how multiculturalism, importing immigrants, and basically treating the world with suicidal empathy caused all of the ills in Europe and elsewhere. Does he think then that Western imperialism and, like seeing what Great Britain and what the United States used to do, really what Great Britain and the French and the Dutch used to do.
All kinds
Spain,
of Belgium.
Yep.
Yeah.
That maybe that was a good idea. That you don't really have to trade with people if you just take their stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to fall back on my childhood here and quote the golden rule. We weren't always a big, powerful nation. We had the benefit of larger, I almost said companies. We had the benefit of larger countries, powerful countries taking our side in terms of helping us with our independence because they had beef with England. I'm talking about France, of course. But if there is ever a hint of a chance that someone else could be top dog, and there absolutely is, would we want to be treated this way? It's horrifying to think about being on the receiving end of this kind of treatment, even from a benevolent, well-intentioned country just swooping in and playing God over a closed system like that, whether or not it's for the benefit of whomever. It's just like socialism. You're relying on the good intentions of the person in power. And I think that is the elemental flaw of socialism, is that even if it initially begins with somebody with good intentions, it is 1 generation, 2 generations. It's a hair's breadth away from someone who's going to come in and abuse that. And I think this kind of action runs that same risk. Yeah, I think it's working out well for Venezuela, and I think Venezuela's going to come out on top on this. I think the United States is going to come out on top on this. It seems like it's beneficial for us and for the people who are allied with us by fucking happy chance.
Yeah, I sort of wonder if there isn't some kind of balance that we're missing here. Because, like I said, if they Pinochet all of the dictators, it would not break my heart. Especially if you don't have to cause any wars to do it. But let's just say you put in power whoever you want. You create a bunch of countries as capitalistic as Argentina all over the world. Unless you're not like Trump and you actually trade with them, let their economies grow, build relationships, because Venezuela, for example, has gold and they have oil.
Yeah, I didn't realize that about the gold. A huge amount of gold, I guess. Gold and oil, so
minerals.
Yeah.
You name it, right? And there was a deal that Trump was trying to make with Ukraine regarding their minerals. So my thought is, you could help these people to rebuild their economies, give them freedom if you wanted to, as long as you're not using war to do it. Actually just I'm taking out your dictator, you guys can have your election. If you don't vote the guy in, it was kind of all for naught, really. If you kidnapped him.
Hypothetical for you that I'll throw back at you. Imagine for a second that you could guarantee a totally fair election.
Okay.
And let's suppose we orchestrate it. The people go, they vote. It's totally on the up and up. There's no corruption or manipulation. And they vote that they want Maduro back. It's hypothetical.
Well, my thought is, if you really have the letter of the law that he did commit crimes here, tough shit, I guess. You know, is there another socialist dictator that you guys want that'll keep toilet paper from you and make you eat zoo animals? I don't think that would happen,
I guess,
but...
Yeah. So, like, my point is, like, in the imperialistic kind of situation that, like, you asked me earlier, and the action that we're seeing in Venezuela and stuff like that, the question is always, like, we think we know better, and we're convinced we know better, and we you know, we have good intentions. Like, we're trying to do something good. However, in a situation like that, like interpersonal, and I imagine with countries and world diplomacy as well, just because you are offering something you truly believe to be good, it doesn't mean that's what people want, and it doesn't mean that's what's actually good. And so I don't think that applies to this particular situation, but I think we need to allow ourselves the space to realize that we might not recognize when it isn't actually good for them. Like, I don't believe that we are free enough of bias or free enough of our own personal ambition to be in charge of smaller countries like that.
Well, you actually bring up a point. There was a video that I saw a couple days ago that speaks to the exact situation you're talking about.
Okay.
So this very far left woman considered herself an activist, and she was from Europe. She's never been to the Middle East, but she heard about apartheid. She heard about abuses. She heard about people in Gaza protecting themselves or trying to rise up with just sticks and stones, basically. And she wanted to do what she could for these people, and her goal was to get to Gaza, talk to them, expose things. And because it's so hard to get into Gaza, she ends up flying into an airport in Israel. And she doesn't really know what to do from that point because she's never done this before.
Okay.
So she ends up talking to the people in Israel, and specifically Arabs there. She stays with them. She eats their food. She has conversations with them. All the people who she could communicate with who spoke English. And she learns that they love it. And, you know, the veil is lifted, and she realizes, no, I think that if everybody lived like this, including in Gaza, that people would be better off. And what she points out, kind of harshly, even, you know, like, from my perspective, she says that the people in Gaza do all these abuses to themselves. They choose the life that they're choosing. Yes, they're indoctrinated to choose it, but if they made different choices about leadership, they would have different lives. So to your point, from her perspective, what they want isn't going to serve them, but it's still what they want. So if the people of Venezuela loved Maduro...
This is an old scenario, right? Like, it's parent-child, it's teacher-student, it's healthcare worker-patient. Like, does somebody who knows better have a right to make choices to take choices away from somebody who doesn't? I'm not sitting here pretending I know the answer, but I think that we at least need to admit that we might not have, well, just like that woman going over to Gaza, like she felt very informed. She thought she had done her research. She had a presumably like logic-based plan for her actions, and she gets there and she realizes she's wrong.
Yeah.
So in parallel to that, can anybody sitting from afar, certainly the government has better information and intelligence than we do here on our couch in Michigan. But even to that level of like informedness, do we know better than people who are living that way?
Well, and I feel like the answer is kind of a blend. You know, most things aren't just black or white.
Sure.
I would say that the people in Venezuela know more about what it's like to live in Venezuela than I do. Like, I would not speak for them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have that level of arrogance, even me, to think that I know what they're going through. Like, there's a lot of people from Venezuela online who are really annoyed with Americans talking about this right now. Mm-hmm. It's different if they lived there and they came to America and they lived under Chavez or Maduro and they have something to say about it. Mm-hmm. But the people who are really living there now understand better than anybody what's happening.
Certainly.
And how they felt before and how they feel now. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't presume to talk about that. However, there's a reason that our founders and I think of democracy as the tyranny of the majority. I personally think the idea that Trump, Joe Biden, got enough primary votes supposedly to be the nominees for the last election is laughable and weird. And maybe the DNC's corrupt, and maybe the RNC's corrupt, and they didn't. But I think people who think they were the absolute best choices are batshit crazy. I don't have any power in that statement, but sometimes being in the majority of what people want doesn't give you any power, you know?
And I guess what you're saying is all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I also think that it's highly likely that there's corruption in the DNC and the RNC. Mm-hmm. I think it's highly likely that the elections aren't exactly representative of what everyday people are voting. I think that if you and I feel that way, it would be easy for somebody on a high level of informedness in another country to feel that way. Does that mean Britain has a right to come in and depose Trump? Not on my fucking watch. This is our corruption. Like someone else can stay.
Sure.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. At the same time, I think, like I said, not everything is black and white. Although there were really, really terrible things that happened as a result of Western imperialism, like everything that happened to the Native Americans, for example, I think some of the people that got colonized are way better off than if it had never happened. You know, like the United States, for example. Like, if we hadn't ended up here, we wouldn't have the greatest fucking country with all of these resources. We were colonies, and then we made something better even than the country that colonized us. So I feel like it's not always as simple as, like, imperialism is always bad. And I think anybody who acts like it's always bad or it's always good is really kind of a shit. You know, like there are people that argue that it's the best thing ever. Like, I think Stephen Miller was trying to get at that. And that's what scares me about the Trump administration. It's like, I think you're kind of an idiot. And who are you listening to that's even more of an idiot than you are? I don't trust you. I don't trust you, Phyllis.
Yeah, I feel like some of the things you said, I'll be honest, in a public forum, I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole.
Sure. Fine.
It's no secret the foundations of America were built on blood and genocide. That being said, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be an American. I'm grateful for the freedoms I have. And I try to live in an awareness of the enormous cost that it came with. I guess that's pretty much the limit that I can say on that. Like, I can't change it with my words. I can't. Oof. It's sticky. That being said, as far as Venezuela goes, it does seem like they're going to come out on top. I'm grateful that they're making plans to put a leader in that the people actually choose. If that actually happens, I think that's obviously the right way forward. I'm grateful that they are making plans to rebuild like their oil economy, because that benefits obviously the country of Venezuela. They don't have to eat like pets and zoo animals anymore. Like that money goes back into the economy and the people. They get a much better standard of living, and it benefits the United States too. Here we have a friendly, non-Middle Eastern source of oil who is potentially like super grateful to us. That's like a win-win. I think this situation on its own as an island, I am daring to hope that it's going to be okay.
Well, and then here's one more question, an offshoot of what we're talking about here. Trump said that we're buying Greenland, whether they like it or not, because strategically this cannot get into the hands of Russia or China, who he believes will just take it. So my thought is,
who is Greenland independent? Who owns Greenland?
Greenland's
independent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they're like, basically, we don't want you here. Fuck off.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, if it was really a choice between we buy you or we buy land to put nukes on, would you rather us buy you or pay you for land than have Russia or China take you? And I feel like if that's the question, maybe he's just framing it all wrong.
I think that is the question, and he is framing it all wrong, possibly for almost like publicity. Like it's a headline at this point. You and I kind of like talked about this, and like, look, I'm no expert on world affairs or like international diplomacy relations, whatever. But we kind of jokingly said like Japan is an independent nation with a sovereign leader, makes their own democratic decisions, but we are the military presence in Japan.
Yeah.
Let's Japan Greenland. Like, be independent, make your own choices, live your life, give us a sizable base here, and we will protect you with our huge, enormous, powerful military, and basically we'll defend it as if it was our own against Russia and China. So, like, I don't understand why that's not...
And I think the one difference in what you're suggesting versus, like, how we Japan is because we nuked them, you know?
Right.
Like,
and listen,
you're just saying negotiate it.
I'm first in line to say that I think the history between the United States and Japan is reprehensible. I don't think we've mentioned this on here at all. I've lived in Japan. I've been to Hiroshima. I've been to Nagasaki. Like, I have a hard opinion on that matter, and I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. I don't think that should ever happen again in the history of any nation ever. But we are protecting them with, like, this military blanket. Mm-hmm. I think that they should be able to have their own forces, and they're certainly strong enough to, and maybe, like, we could, like, allow them to have their own military and slowly back off as they become more and more independent. In terms of Greenland, I think their population is considerably less. Their resources are considerably less. Like, they probably could benefit from a big brother sort of situation even more so than Japan. But I'm saying, like, have a similar big brother relationship. You have a huge military base there, and for all intents and purposes, our military is their military.
And to Hannah's point, frame it that way. Make them understand why it would be worth their while.
It's a collaboration. It's not a takeover. Jesus Christ.
But I think what we see, this is one of the few ways I would say there's a huge difference between Trump and Biden. Biden's an appeaser. He's been an appeaser when he was in the Senate, when he was vice president, when he was president, and you can have that perfect example of Maduro's nephews.
Sure.
At any given point, Biden will bend over and think he's going to get what he wants because he bends over, and Trump will do the opposite. He's a bully. He got the nomination because he was a bully.
He bristles. Yeah, instead of, like, when he should bend, he fights. When he should... Yeah.
And what's funny to me that Americans don't seem to recognize with him is that bullies are some of the weakest people. Mm-hmm. And I don't see parallels that MAGA wants me to see between Trump and Reagan, between
Ew, no.
Trump and Teddy Roosevelt.
Fuck no. Teddy Roosevelt was twice the man.
Was bae.
I have a weird crush on Teddy.
I can't grow that big a mustache, but I could try.
You can wear those little round spectacles and ride a horse with a saber.
I can bring you the mail, you know. I do it quite often, actually. All that to say, though, that I feel like just throwing your weight around is sort of like a guy who talks about how macho he is.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think although...
He's got a tiny dick and a big truck. I mean...
although there is something smart about being strategic, making sure that Russia doesn't get all of their natural resources in Venezuela, or making sure that they don't put nukes on Greenland, maybe there's a smoother way to go about it than how you're going about it.
There most certainly is. And I feel for Marco Rubio in terms of what's going on with Greenland right now. It's weird that it's tied to Venezuela because it's almost like he's trying to be efficient and like multitask. Like, I'm going to go, and he was super efficient by like going in and like snatching out Maduro and like making this a nice clean little quote unquote non-war action, whatever. But then to draw those parallel, like you're really multitasking when you're drawing the parallels between this action with Maduro and Greenland. Like, just like we went in and snatched the leader here, we're going to come in and swoop in and take Greenland from you. Yeah.
So all this said, I'm making a note right now that next week we should talk about this conversation between Coleman Hughes and Dave Smith that pertains to a lot of what we're talking about right now. I think Hannah will laugh at the clip and we'd enjoy talking about that with you guys. But I think this particular subject, we're getting a little long-winded. We have so much other stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So I say we just like call it and we move on to the next thing because this is our show.
It's cached. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some of the biggest news of the week with the ICE shooting of Renee Good. Clusterfuck. It's the best word for this.
Yeah, when this first happened, I felt like there was never going to be any clear video footage or like commentary. Like, it was always just going to be like a he said, she said. But as the story develops, I feel like, and maybe this is just my bias talking, but I feel like we're seeing a pretty clear indication of what exactly went down. There's body cam footage, there's cell phone footage, there's bystander footage. This is a highly recorded incident that happened. And there's maybe a little room for interpretation, maybe a little wiggle room here and there. But I think what happened is pretty clear cut, and it's pretty fucking sad and pretty fucking unnecessary.
And I'm somebody who typically doesn't side with the cops. I'm not like that person that puts like the blue line on shit.
Yeah, in fact, I think I saw a few times that it was like Law Enforcement Appreciation Day today, on the day of our recording, January 9th.
Yeah, I'm not that person. Like, Eric Garner shouldn't have died. George Floyd, even with his criminal background, should not have died that day. Michael Brown should have gotten shot by that cop. So it's never like I hate the cops all the time or I hate criminals all the time. I'm not that person. And to me, this was a case where I wasn't sure what I was going to see. And I didn't know who it was at first, any of that. I didn't necessarily expect it not to be an illegal immigrant. But it turned out to be a white woman who we're now learning might have been a professional protester, a paid protester. And at first, I saw the angle that I think media wanted me to see, which is just from the back of the vehicle, where you couldn't really tell where the officer who shot her was.
Right, so there are several officers involved in this, and one was like at the driver's side door, like in the window, like trying to work the handle, and there was another that was at the front driver quarter panel. that was sort of like block in one behind. So the perspective Ash is talking about is from, I think it was the wife of the driver. Is that right?
Well, I thought that initially, but it turns out she was on the other side of the vehicle.
So it was somebody standing behind the vehicle and getting like a far back shot of the officer, mostly of the officer who was standing at the driver window, and you could not really see the driver that was the front quarter panel because he was directly in line with the driver's side.
And here's a dark thought, because it's really not something that anybody could have anticipated happening. But I think it's possible that if these were paid protesters, if that was possibly a friend of theirs or even a neighbor who didn't approve of this happening, you're taking video because you're hoping to catch something that will make your side look better. Probably not a shooting, but you probably want to catch this mom of three being given a hard time by ICE officers.
I think at the very least we could say that the person taking the video is probably on the side of the protester, because why else are you videoing this? And it's a favorable angle for a narrative of excessive force.
Yes.
I think that's the reason it may have been the first out, because it was the first volunteered. Like, hey, this supports my idea that it was excessive force because everything you can see in here seems excessive. So subsequently, pretty quickly after, you were getting shots from like really far back from the passenger side. And then was it today, recently, we get the perspective of the actual like cell phone footage of an officer in that situation.
Yeah. And to me, it's interesting is as soon as I saw the really far back, more like toward the front of the vehicle angle, it negated one of the arguments that's being made by the blue check Democrats and, people on the left generally, that the officer didn't get touched by the vehicle at all. You can see that he got hit in that farther away angle.
It's pretty clear that he is in the path of the vehicle. I don't think a reasonable person could say that didn't happen.
Yeah, you can kind of see him at the very least being touched and spinning off, and not really, it doesn't really look like he made that motion himself. It was too fast. He kind of like rolls off the vehicle.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in a way that it wasn't like he gets hit and he's off the top of the hood of the vehicle or anything like that. He kind of spins off the side. But you could tell that happened. To me, that was pretty damning in and of itself. But then today, people keep calling it cell phone footage, but it looks like his body cam.
It's hard for me to tell. It seems like it's a little extended from his body. But yeah, I've seen it described both ways. The point is, it's like point of view from the officer himself.
Yeah, so you can see that she's not directly in front of him, which makes sense with how he kind of rolled off of the vehicle. Mm-hmm. She's a little bit of an angle.
Yeah, and like with a little bit of humor in a very dark and sad situation, with respect to the fact that a person lost their life, and also respect to the fact that an officer has to live with the consequence of his actions. I kind of made the joke of like, oh, well, she's a woman and she's a bad driver who misjudged the distance. Mm-hmm. I think that it is very reasonable to assume that she may not have been intending to hit him. I think for me personally, whatever that's worth, it seems to me like she was trying to get away and drive away. Yeah. For me though, that doesn't change the fact that you were very near an officer when you did this. The officer is telling you to exit the vehicle and you're deciding to drive instead. You are a bad driver and have misjudged the distance, and you have clipped an officer. Mm-hmm. This is not even just a cop, but even if it was just a regular police officer of the city, you're evading arrest, you're endangering the life of an officer, you're directly defying orders to step out of the vehicle. It seems to me like a very entitled and naive point of view that you think you can take those kinds of actions and not have serious consequence. Whether or not lethal action is justified, you are way out of line.
Yeah. There was actually on Twitter or X a black male who pointed out that he would never do this. because he's a black male, that if she hadn't been a white woman, she might not have tried this. And I feel like that's a fair assessment.
Oh, absolutely. She has the air of, like, thinking like it's almost like a game, like this is a part of the emergency. It's like, you've asked you to turn off your vehicle and step outside, and your response is to peel away.
Hitting or assaulting a federal officer has a penalty of 20 years in prison. It's fair to say she had other priorities.
It's okay, we don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. And it'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen.
She just didn't think this was as big a deal.
I said go get yourself some lunch, big boy.
And here's the thing that is interesting, is that said in an interview right after it happened that this was my fault, that I caused us to move here, and it's my fault. But once we actually see this body cam footage, which we're about to share with you, she might have a different reason for saying that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play that clip. Pay attention to the audio here.
We can actually hear Becca saying, "Drive, baby, drive."
And I feel like, okay, so Ash shared this clip with me before our recording tonight. I watched the slow motion, and you definitely can hear it. But then once you go back to a regular, like, full speed, from any perspective video that has audio, you can hear her saying it in real time. Like, it's there.
Once you hear it.
And in addition to that, for those of you watching on YouTube and you get the visual as well, earlier in the clip, when the officer starts to say, get the fuck out of the vehicle, get the fuck out of the vehicle, at that point, that's when Becca approaches the passenger door and attempts to get inside the vehicle with her wife. They have no intention of exiting the vehicle. They have no intention of, like, submitting to law enforcement. And to your earlier point, I can't imagine someone other than a fucking suburban white woman who's never had to deal with shit her entire life taking that kind of action when a federal agent is telling you to do something else. You're just like, no, whatever, we're going to drive away and go home. This doesn't apply to me.
And my thought is, I can honestly say, I do not think Renee Good or Becca Good intended any of this to happen. But what I think...
No, I don't think they intended for there to be a death.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that at all. But what I think they did intend was they thought they could mess with the cops, get some good footage for YouTube or X or whatever as paid protesters, and zoom away.
Yeah, they're hoping for a little, social justice warrior street cred and a good video of it. They're, like, clearly taunting the cop in this video before, things really start to escalate. And to your point, they're paid... I don't know if they both are or just the one who got shot, but they're, like, suspected of being, like, paid professional protesters who follow this shit around. Like, this is their way of life.
And to Hannah's point, maybe it's not at all the intention of Renee Good to hit somebody, but she did accelerate fast enough to spin the ICE officer, who we should mention, Jonathan Ross. He's been a deportation officer since 2015. That's 10 years. And last summer, he was actually hit and dragged for 100 yards. And he had been using a stun gun to defend himself. Yeah. Obviously, it didn't stop that person.
Yeah, so that's the important other side of the coin to this whole situation, is here you have an officer who's clearly been in this situation before. We all know what the mood of the nation against ICE is at this time, like, especially amongst liberals, especially amongst the people you're going to find on these scenes. So here's somebody who is trying to follow the rules of engagement, is using a taser, non-lethal weapons, still gets caught and dragged by a vehicle for over 100 yards, winds up in the hospital, severe injury to himself. I'm gonna put myself out there and say that this isn't the most unbiased person who could have been in this situation this day with these two ladies.
Sure, and that is both fair, but also I don't know that somebody else in his same situation, given the rate of speed at which this happened, would have done things differently.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
I think it's still
it's noteworthy.
Yeah, it's arguably reasonable for anyone to have reacted the way he did. In my own personal opinion, I realize not everyone agrees. But then you add this extra layer of, like, here's somebody who did try to do the right thing and wound up in the hospital, like, suffering for what he did. And not even all that long ago, like, less than a year ago. So here you are in this situation again. You get struck by a vehicle from the front.
Yeah.
By two ladies who are taunting you, clearly, like, not complying with orders, have every intention of, like, running you down and fleeing the scene. It's not... I don't have the answers about all the finer points of rules of engagement, what the most appropriate action would have been, what the training is. I don't know. However, the point is, we didn't have to be in this place. We didn't have to be asking these questions. If you are confronted by a law enforcement officer and you choose not to comply, this is uncharted territory, and you have signed up for a host of unforeseen consequences.
Yeah. My mom actually sent me a clip of Chris Rock. It was probably 20 years ago now that he made this video, and I'm sure he wouldn't make it now. And it was all about there are easy steps to avoid getting your ass beat by police officers. One of them is don't break the law.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And the other one is just comply and do what they say.
And look, we realize, like, race relations with the police in this country are complicated. Mm-hmm. Relations between the police and illegal immigrants are complicated. There are some people who enjoy the benefit of the doubt when it comes to dealing with law enforcement officers, and there are people who don't, and we realize it's unfair.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that applies to this particular situation. You have two suburban white women in an SUV who are living their lives the way they see best fit, whatever. They're making their own political choices, as is their right. But they're rolling dice that they don't seem to understand the weight of.
And that's a great point. Like Hannah points out, it's not fair that black people, when pulled over, might have to be, like, to the letter compliant, whereas maybe a white person getting pulled over can flirt or joke or whatever. But a black person, I value what they have to say about this situation, because when they say, I would never behave this way, I feel like that's a valuable statement to make.
It's a valuable statement to make because here you have the rabid, drooling left who is so quick to blame law enforcement when it's like, no, wait a minute. Why don't you check your fucking privilege for once and realize the fact that you're a white woman who's just doing whatever the fuck you want and you expect zero consequences, but you want to march in a Black Lives Matter protest next weekend and you want to, like, say down with the patriarchy and defund the police. Like, go fuck yourself. You have no idea the position of privilege you're speaking from.
And it's really funny and ironic that Hannah brings this up. This isn't one of the clips that I'm going to show her and get, like, a live reaction, but one of 3 clips of white leftist women that I saw regarding this incident is a lady telling a news reporter that she feels angry at herself about how upset she is, that her white tears don't matter, and the fact that this is a white woman that this happened to, she feels kind of bad that she feels bad.
She feels bad for having sadness about a white death?
Yes, and that she recognizes her own white privilege and that her tears are less than that of people of color.
And I say this with a very somber and regretful attitude. Like, this is a life that should not have been lost. I say this with respect to the whole story that doesn't get to be finished by Renee Good. If only she had thought about her white privilege and her white
if I continually see you following us, interfering with us, honking your horn, blocking our cars, you have a very high probability of making a really bad decision and being arrested today, okay?
I want to start with
I'm not.
Hannah. I know she hasn't
I'm
seen
giving her a
these
warning
things,
to not
and I just
interfere
think
with
it would
what
be
we're doing,
interesting
to
get her
not make a
perspective.
bad decision today and ruin your life.
Well, bad
Okay,
decisions.
thank you.
That's funny coming from you.
Okay, alrighty. Thank you. Have a good day.
I hope you have a terrible day.
Okay, thank you. Hold on. Watch out, it's slippery. Watch out.
Yeah, there's a lot of ice around here.
Just so you know, if we continue to have you follow us, okay, have fun. Don't make a bad decision today.
It's not illegal to follow you. What is illegal is stopping people unconstitutionally.
So noting that this is the day after Renee Good is actually shot.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
I'm not kidding.
Okay, so watching this, I assumed it was before.
No. They're actually...
Oh my God.
They're upping the ante. Not only did I see clips like this, but I see clips where, for example, a woman does this, but with a 6-year-old child sitting next to her, basically rolling the dice on her own kid to try to make ICE look bad.
Okay, I have so many feelings because like I feel conflicted, right? Like I believe in people's right to protest. I believe in like these people who have a right to like be driving wherever they want to drive, you know, within reason. And I also feel for the officer who's like, we're trying to do our job and you're getting in the way and it could become a problem. Here's your warning. We suggest you leave. Like, I, to some extent, can see both sides. But when you put it in the context of this is after the Karen Good shooting, I'm sorry, oh man, I do honestly feel bad about that. When you put it in the context of this being after the Renee Good shooting, like, my mind is blown and it scares me a little bit. It scares me because it's like, you think you can do whatever you want, and like what's the consequence of this? The consequence is that someone else gets shot, and then what? Like this is the beginning of a really scary chapter, I feel like.
Well, and you and I talked about this morning, I think. That when I think about like peaceable assembly, I think about Martin Luther King. I think about not so much blocking traffic as like a protest on foot in front of the ICE building, say. Like, you're not really impeding what they do when you do that, but you're sending a message and you're saying, like, all these people who are out here don't agree with what you're doing. But the minute that you block a man from dropping off his kid, he has nothing to do with anything to do with ICE. He's got a job and he's trying to get his kid to daycare.
Sure.
The minute that you impede an actual investigation, which, by the way, it's a little ironic that if they were out messing up Republicans, these people would love it. But the minute the big government stomps a boot on people they want to defend, it's terrible. It's like you realize that this is statism.
This is totally off subject, and I don't want to get into this per se, like right now, but it's funny that you mentioned the Republic, like they would be excited if this was Republican. I did see somebody online today draw a parallel between the way they felt like the right was reacting to Renee's death, drawing a parallel between that and how the left was reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. It's an enormous disservice to Charlie Kirk to draw that parallel. Like, they're not comparable, but I understood the point of, like, basically you have two sides of people, like, dehumanizing each other when, like, the truth is nothing to do with, like, who's good and who's bad.
Yeah.
It's very complex and it's very different than that. But I also want to bring up, if I can, that, like, we're coming to you, listener, from Michigan. We are one generation away from the Detroit riots of 1967, July. This was a time in American history that my mother remembers, that, like, my grandparents were alive for, that my dad was alive for. Like, our parents can talk about this in living memory. There were tanks rolling down the streets of Detroit. They called it a riot, but there were snipers. There were stockpiles of weapons. There were people with AK-47s in the street. It was guerrilla warfare in the guts of Detroit for like days. The National Guard was mowing people down. Anyone they saw. It was a fucking war in an urban setting in America. So I think that should color at least the perception of you and me as like Michiganders who live in the suburbs of Detroit. And it should be a lesson for people like, hey, this is a half a generation removed. This is not the way to get shit done. You think you can come at the federal complex with your cell phones and your angry signs and your vehicles, and you think you're not going to get mowed down and murdered in the street? You want to make a difference. This isn't the way to do it.
Well, and what really bothers me about all of this is that most people, if the shoe is on the other foot, they're fine with whatever happens. And those of us like me and Javier Milei, who hate the state no matter who's in charge, just want people's actual rights to be protected. So if there is a criminal, there are 2 people that were actually shot and hospitalized in Portland, for example,
Sure.
who were trafficking girls for a cartel.
I didn't know that detail. That's crazy.
Those criminals were hurting people. They were hurting humans and trafficking them. And if our government shoots them, hospitalizes them, arrests them, and deports them, or whatever they do with them, that's okay with me because they were doing the one role of government, which is protecting people's rights. When the government actually does what it's supposed to do, not only am I shocked, but I applaud it, right? But in so many cases, if there's an abuse of people's rights, like, I have no love for George Floyd, who supposedly held a knife to a pregnant woman's belly. But the one time that he was actually to be arrested, excessive force, I believe, was used, and he didn't have to die that day. Yeah. And he still had human and rights as an American citizen.
For sure.
That should have protected his life, and he should have just gone to jail.
Yeah.
So I'm not in support of that. I'm not in support of excessive force for anyone who doesn't need that. I do think in this particular case that none of this had to happen. To Hannah's point, if this woman didn't think she was going to get paid or get insta-famous or whatever you want to say, this interaction with police wouldn't have occurred. And the idea that people are comparing it not only to Charlie Kirk, but to Irina, the immigrant who was stabbed by a stranger on a bus.
Oh, no.
It's like, no, I'm sorry. She was here legally. She didn't have a run-in with police because she committed a crime. Her death is a tragedy. Yes, Renee's death didn't have to happen and is tragic, and I wouldn't celebrate it. But there's really not a good comparison between the two. The fact that people are just throwing out anything there, like the right will always celebrate, like, I'm as right as it gets, and I don't want this woman to get hurt. I don't want any of this to happen.
And you know, this is something we talk about all the time on the podcast, like it very much the narrative that benefits the government and benefits like dissent and the 24-hour news cycle and people who make money off of us. The narrative that benefits that is that it's left versus right, but smart people, thinking people understand that it's not left versus right, it's government versus civilian. And I think this is a tragic and horrible example of just that. I don't think, listen, I'll put my personal opinion out there. I don't think the officer was wrong for taking the action that he did. I think it was justified given the situation. But it brings up the larger point of, like, I made that parallel with the Detroit quote-unquote riots. Like, you want to come at the military in a belligerent violent, disruptive, arrogant way, you think maybe I'll, worst case scenario, maybe I'll die like Renee Good and I'll be a martyr for the cause or whatever, and you think that's going to affect change. If no one else tells you this today, I will tell you, it does not affect change. Does anybody know anyone, any single fucking name, any anecdote of someone who died in the Detroit riots? And there were hundreds of people mowed down by the government in the street just for showing their face. This is not how you affect change. I don't give a shit about your cause. I don't give a shit about your pro-immigration bullshit, anti-ICE stuff. I don't care. But you think you throw your life away for a reason. You're not.
Well, and to Hannah's point, it takes me to our next and very important clip about how when you do this stuff, you might intend to be a big name or a martyr, but actually, you're kind of an asshole.
That Mustang's coming on you pretty fast. She just ran a red light.
We were up with you.
Yeah, that's a fast little car. She's right behind you now. All right, just slow down. Let me do this.
Yeah, come down here. Fine road.
Okay. Turn on the lights. 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 Hey, wait. Turn on the lights. You're impeding with the federal investigation. We have your own camera. We actually have news reporters with us in the vehicle. Your case will be referred over to Homeland Security investigations for prosecution. You will be arrested. This is your last and final warning. Hold on a second, guys. Give me your license, please. I will once again tell you, you have cases in danger. Put your vehicle and park and shut it off, please. I understand, but you are impeding. Look where you're at. You are almost causing an accident. You are surrounded by federal agents. Okay, I am the Deputy Field Office Director here, ma'am.
We're here at the Mustang.
Stand by. We're running the name. We're going to refer this case over for enforcement action.
I'm just a mom, please.
You got it?
Please, I'm just a mom, please. I'm just
Kylie?
a mom. Yes, please, I'm just
You
a
are
mom.
just, you turn around and get out of here.
I'm getting out of here,
Here you go. Slow down.
Yes.
Hey,
I'm getting out.
guys, I got it. I got it. Got it. Everybody break away. Everybody break away.
I'm going home.
Kylie, look at me. Quiet. Look at me. Take a deep breath. Okay? I need you right now. Take a deep breath. I want you to pull over right here and go home. Okay?
Imagine for a moment that this isn't a liberal white woman who's, quote, just a mom. Imagine it's a young Mexican-American man like the cop we just saw.
Yeah, okay, so this is something that I was thinking while we were watching it. It's a Latino ICE agent with a female trainee. So already, we're bucking stereotypes.
Yeah.
And then you pull this woman over in a fucking Mustang crossover who's she's putting her hands up and pleading, I'm just a mom. That's fine. You can be just a mom. But pick.
Yeah.
You're a mom who's minding her business and doing her shit and abiding by the law, or you're a protester who's ready to take some fucking political action and possibly be arrested or detained for your cause. You literally cannot have it both ways, and it takes a suburban white fat woman to think that you can. And I'll be the first suburban white fat woman to say so.
Don't say you're fat. All that said, the idea too that she is in front of federal agents, she speeds, she runs a red light, and she gets away with it. Mm-hmm. So my thought about Renee Good I'm not a fortune teller. I can't imagine how definitely things could have been different. But my thought is, if she had apologized and gone home instead of flooring it, she not only would be alive, but probably not even in jail.
Yeah, and I feel like much to the chagrin of the arrogance of these white suburban protesters who are paid, like, the federal agents have bigger fish to fry. You're not the reason they get out of bed and strap on their military boots. They're not there to fuck around with your, like, you know, virtue signaling outrage. They're there to do a job, and you have nothing to do with it, and get the fuck out of the way. I think just like, you know, this guy was extremely gracious, more gracious than any traffic cop I've ever encountered. He is stopping the flow of traffic, calling off fellow officers, letting her go home, acknowledging that she realizes she made a mistake and wants to get out of there. And he's like, fine, happy to let you go.
And my thought is, if statistically cops are more likely to shoot somebody of their own race, we just saw that Jonathan Ross shot Renee, and they're both white people. Is there a part of this Mexican-American ICE officer who lets this lady go in part because she's a white leftist woman? You know, like, he doesn't want to be biased against somebody else, and he, you know, in his own mind probably is like, this lady makes a mistake, but she acknowledged she made a mistake, which isn't something, unfortunately, that Renee Good did or had time to do.
Oh, she had time to do it, but she didn't.
She didn't. And the result was entirely different. Mm-hmm. So my thought is, no, we can't go back in time. But, this lady probably shouldn't have got away with what she got away with. But Renee Good probably would have gotten away with it if she had apologized and gone home.
Yeah, it reminds me of, you know, a lot of situations that we hear about in all aspects of life, mm-hmm. whether it's, you know, like infidelity or like petty theft or cheating in school or like anything you can think of. You have many opportunities on your path to change your mind. You have many opportunities to pick a different way.
Yeah.
And I say this again with like the full weight of the sorrow of the fact that a human life was lost, a mother was lost, a wife was lost. She had many opportunities to change the path that her life ended up ending on. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's a defeat. What is the saying that I'm trying to think of? Like, something along the lines of a defeat of 1,000 steps or something like that. I'd have to look it up to know for sure. I don't remember the cliche I'm thinking of, but basically it is many, many, many choices.
Oh, death by 1,000 cuts?
No, but
a journey of 1,000 miles against
whatever
the first
it is,
step.
you guys get what I'm trying to say. Yeah. There was ample opportunity. It was decision upon decision upon decision that brought her to this life and death situation that she ended up coming out on the bottom of.
And ironically, even though it's a completely different scenario, I feel like we could look at her and we could look at Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd, another white person, but in the officer's shoes. At any point, he could have let up.
He could have listened to the people around him who were saying that he's choking. Choking.
And this is why in Minnesota, and it happened a mile from where Renee Good was shot.
That's bizarre.
There's something called like, I'll forget the legal terminology, but it's basically when you kill someone because you have decided to be cruel. It's like an excessive cruelty that just doesn't need to happen. Mm-hmm. She had a lack of self-awareness and a lack of just accepting that she was in the wrong. That just didn't need to happen. The situation did not need to occur.
Sure.
And in some ways, we could say these were two entitled white people that just didn't need to do the thing that they did.
Yeah.
And if they had had more self-awareness, like, I'll give you an example. I always laugh with Hannah about this waste of taxpayer dollars, this government study about how lesbians are bad drivers. And I always joke that, like, of course they're bad drivers, they're women. And I drive for a living, and I had to run outside my territory, and I knocked my mirror on our garage. It was like the worst example of bad driving that I've ever seen. But now, like, when I have to give my boss a ride, I just acknowledge, like, I'm a woman. I'm a white woman. I'm a bad driver. And I'm closer to being a lesbian than Hannah will ever be. And she's a great driver.
Listen, I'm a passable driver. I'm fine. I think I'm fine.
All that said, if Renee Good had even had that self-awareness that I'm not a good driver, she probably wouldn't have floored it and hit the guy.
And we're laughing about it. And
no, and I don't. I really don't mean, like...
Well, I just mean to say we're laughing about it because it's like, you kind of have to. Like, the situation is so fucking sad and pointless.
Yeah,
that you
it's
have
pointless.
To. But yeah, like, the if you want to call it humorous or, like, whatever you want to say, like, even a small thing like this, even a small thing, like, acknowledging... I don't have a great history of being able to judge the distance of my front quarter panel.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge that there are people around, and I don't have the razor sharp clarity to decide if I have enough clearance here.
And my thought is, I don't know necessarily because the officer was already asking her to open her door for her to get out of the vehicle. But I think that it's possible that if she had just said the words, okay, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'll go home, and went slower than she did, she might have gotten out of that situation.
Yeah.
I think she was maybe a bit more dramatic than even the other white lady, and she might have gotten arrested that day. But it's like, just let yourself be arrested because you were antagonizing police. And maybe you spend a night in jail and then you go home to your kids.
I think to kind of wrap this up a little bit, something else we talked about after this happened, before recording, is that I think the perception of what is considered protest or considered like demonstration is changing. Like, and I say that with the knowledge that I wasn't around for the 60s and 70s, right? Like, I know that was like the big time for anti-government organized movement. I don't know what that was like per se. I can only speak to what I am aware of in my lifetime. Signs, voices, sit-ins, things like that are what I had always considered to be protest. I don't consider fleeing law enforcement officers, ignoring orders to get out of vehicles.
That's resisting.
Like actual physical action where you're interfering with law enforcement, defying law enforcement
with a vehicle,
or running away from law enforcement. I don't really understand how, even I am also like a white woman who enjoys white privilege and stuff. I don't understand how a white suburban woman can get to a point where you consider that part of like a normal protest.
Yeah, and I'm a white woman who doesn't believe in white privilege, and I would never block a roadway. I would never be so entitled as to believe that whatever I'm protesting is worthy of me stopping a dad. This is an actual video I saw, which is why I keep referencing it. A dad getting his kid to daycare on time so he can go to work. That, to me, you're not protesting a thing. You're ruining someone's whole day.
And I think just like even in a simpler term, like I remember as a young person being trained by my dad, and I know there were situations where a sibling of mine was like being pulled over by a law enforcement officer, and hearing those stories, like a law enforcement officer comes to your window, you put your hands on the wheel and you sit still and you give one-word answers And if they ask you to get your license or anything, you ask permission to take your hands off the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand the point of, like, violence and upset that these people are used to dealing with. I don't think it's a given that somebody has the privilege of being taught the way I was taught how to deal with law enforcement officers. But I think that you should have some sort of feeling of the fact that these people put their lives on the line every single day and deal with the worst of our society. You should behave in accordance to that.
Yeah. At the very least, acknowledge that this person has authority or the belief in it and a gun.
Yep.
Don't spit on an officer even if you think they deserve it. Don't hit them. They have a gun. They have a nightstick. They can take you out of the world.
Yeah.
Especially if you're unarmed. Like she had a vehicle. She put herself in danger by, in my opinion, starting a conflict by hitting that gas. Even if she didn't intend to hit him, she did put him in danger.
And she intended to flee the scene, which is itself a crime.
Yeah. So my thought is the people who do what they can to avoid engaging with law enforcement, even like the libertarians who stick their license and registration in a baggie out of the window, they know that there's a threat there.
And I'll be the first to say that there are, like, bad cops. There are bad law enforcement officers. There are people who will take advantage and abuse their power. Mm-hmm. I understand that that is a possibility every time I interact with somebody who does have a gun.
Yeah.
Or, like, a position of authority over me. In my mind, like, it's not, it's distasteful, and it's something I don't want to, like, dwell on and think about, but I understand that it's a possibility that awful things could happen to me while I'm interacting with somebody like that. However, I do also sort of have the sense of, like, whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen to me, and I have the right to, like, make amends after the fact. I can go to court, I can sue, I can, whatever. But, like, when you're in that situation, shut up and recognize that you're in that situation. Yeah. And you got to get through it, and you got to comply, and you got to stay alive.
Yeah.
You got to stay alive.
It's not the same situation at all, but Hannah and I got pulled over on the way to the airport. It was a bullshit money grab.
It was.
We knew it at the time.
And he knew we knew it, and we knew that he knew it.
But we did not treat him with disrespect. We did not tell him it was bullshit. We didn't say anything.
We didn't make fun of the fact that he was 4'10",
because
in a bulletproof vest.
Because he had a gun. We just let him get away with it. We paid the ticket.
I'll take it a step further and say I didn't comply because he had a gun. I complied because every bias in the world was on his side. It's my job to finish that interaction as quickly as possible and deal with it later. He's in the right, and it doesn't matter if he's correct or not. He's the side that everyone's going to take.
And I don't want to jinx myself. I'm knocking on the table as we speak, but I've never gotten pulled over.
Oh.
And when Hannah got pulled over, like, I grabbed her license and registration so that she wouldn't have to with her hands on the wheel. Like, I made sure, like, everything was prepared. That's, like, the stories that we're told about, like, what we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I was really, like, scared for us. Like,
yeah, I was nervous.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
I remember the first time I got pulled over, I cried because I was so much adrenaline, so much nerves. Yeah. And, like, hands on the wheel and, like, shaking and crying. Because it's scary.
Yeah, but this idea, like, we acknowledge that they have all the power in that situation.
Yeah.
And maybe Renee Good thought that she had more power for whatever reason. But it's like, you did probably commit a few different crimes before the incident even occurred. You didn't acknowledge it. And I'm sorry to, like, point at these things out, but they just didn't have to happen. That's why I have trouble, like, thinking of myself as a victim blamer. This situation didn't need to occur if she had made different choices.
Yeah, there were many different options she could have taken. That being said, I feel for her kids. I feel for her wife.
Yeah, it's still tragic. It just didn't have to happen.
Yeah, she's got parents, she's got friends. I'm sorry for the life that was cut short. I hope people see the story as a chance to rethink their choices and not have their story cut short.
And here's the thing, even if you hate ICE officers, they're doing what they're told to do. They are following what is the law right now. If you want to change the law, to Hannah's point, you're not affecting change by messing with ICE officers.
No.
You could get yourself killed. You could get yourself arrested. Write to somebody. Lobby. Like, do whatever you can to make a fund to change laws. But getting yourself in danger or bringing yourself away from your children and out of this world is not going to affect the change that you want it to. So focus on things that could actually bring about change and not something that just doesn't need to happen and will get you or someone else hurt.
I'll speak for myself, I guess. Mm-hmm. My heart goes out to Jonathan Ross. Is it Jonathan Ross?
Yes.
My heart goes out to the officer involved in this. His life will never be the same. I doubt he's going to be able to wear his name for a while. And my heart goes out to all the people who knew and loved Renee Good too. This was completely senseless, and I don't think it'll be the last time we hear about something like this, but I think it's sort of a cultural benchmark, at least for the year, and it's something that I think people should take to heart. You don't need to prove your point at the end of a gun. Prove it in writing, prove it in demonstration, prove it in peaceful demonstration. Taking your life on the line isn't going to do it. It's just not. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. Who's to say it won't affect change? If you're truly an embarrassment to law enforcement, they just won't tell your story.
And to Hannah's point, I feel bad for Jonathan Ross too. I saw a post today and it was basically implying, he was the worst person on the planet right now. And my thought is, he can't control his PTSD. No. I don't know necessarily what an officer who hadn't been through what he'd been through, I don't know how that person would react. And I also don't think he shot her through the through the driver's side window. I think he shot because someone was coming at him. You can see the glass, the dust of the glass as he shot. And then there is a picture where there's a bullet hole in the windshield and not the side. And I don't know, I don't see any evidence in those videos that there were multiple shots. I think he did what he thought he had to do at the time to survive that situation after being through something really traumatic, I'm sure. And I don't think I would want to be in his position, period. The way people are treating ICE officers right now.
mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important to keep in mind that he punches a clock like I do. Mm-hmm. He has to sit through fucking corporate compliance training once a year like I do. He has to file his taxes in April like I do. Mm-hmm. He has to, decide if he can afford new work boots like I do. I don't wear boots, but you get my point. He's punching a clock and doing his job, whether he likes it or not, for a better life for himself and his family. I would assume, to the best of his ability, we all try to do a decent job at work. I don't think he's out to prove a point or to take down protest. I don't think you do you show up at work with a political agenda every day? I show up at work and just try to do my job and keep my head down.
I show up work and I have to keep my head down because everything about the politics there I can't talk about.
Well, yeah, and whatever.
And all this to say, I don't think there's an equivalent, a moral equivalency between ICE officers and Nazis some of these protesters might think. They're there because there was likely a fraud in Minnesota. I don't think he's racially profiling people. I think there's possibly Somalians who are here and it's not to the letter of the laws that we actually passed.
Possibly.
You know,
I think it's extremely likely.
Yeah. And
if he's racially profiling people, I'm sorry, it's not the white lesbian in the SUV that he shot.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the very real way and not the Nuremberg way. He's doing his job based on the letter of a pretty rational American law. So, can we give ICE officers a little bit of grace in that regard? They're not there because they're just like stormtroopers. They're there because they're trying to do whatever they have to do.
They're trying to do like a semi-impossible job. They're trying to clean up a very close to unclean-upable mess. Mm-hmm. Like, here we are, the state of our country is just like in shambles, and a politician is like, oh, go clean it up, buddy. And he's the asshole with the garbage bag who has to try and find all the trash. I don't envy his position whatsoever. It's a losing game.
Yeah, and I will say...
Cleaning up a mess he didn't make.
Yeah, and I will say that I had friends... I worked at a very low-paying job at one point in logistics. And I thought about applying for Border Patrol because, frankly, I didn't have a family at that point. I didn't have Hannah. I didn't have people in my life who I really thought would miss me. And I thought about it, and my friends thought I would look really cute in the little uniform because I'm a tiny person myself, just like that cop.
Absolutely true that you would look adorable.
Just like that cop, I'm only 4'10". And what kept me from doing it was the idea of traveling that much. Like, you don't really know necessarily where you're going to end up. And I did have my family that I grew up with, and I had friends, so I didn't necessarily want to do that. But as a conservative, as somebody who believes we're a nation of laws, I believed in that. You know, I thought it would be okay to do. Am I a Nazi because I thought it would be okay to be a Border Patrol agent? I don't think so. And I feel like these guys deal with people treating them like they're racist and like they're doing terrible things wherever they go. Even this, like, Mexican-American guy who let the white lady go.
Yeah.
Like, is he a Nazi? Give him a break. So we got long-winded. And in fact...
I'll say.
We got drunk.
We got drunk. We got a little drunk on our own opinions and our own words here. So we had planned to talk about Iran at the end of the show. I think that we should postpone for now. It's a developing story, and we'll have probably more to say next week.
The only thing I will say is that I don't want to not mention it, because shit's happening there.
Yeah, so if you listen to episode 24, we talked about it quite a bit. Basically, it's the same trajectory, the people's movement against the Islamic regime, against the Ayatollah, like, it's building, and I think the people are, like, on track to succeed. They're protesting violently and in huge demonstrations. They're taking over whole cities. I think we saw today that they burned the tomb of the Khomeini. Like it's building momentum. We're so excited for them. I don't understand the media silence. It's appalling and really disappointing to me. So we want to give them their own section, and we want to give them due credit. To Ash's point, we're a little long-winded this week because we are lubricated with the Vasoline of alcohol, if you will. But we want to give them their fair share. So as they continue to build momentum and stuff, we're going to have plenty to talk about next week at the top of our show.
And the only thing that I will say is that even though they are burning tombs and taking over cities, there are also a lot of people being killed.
Absolutely.
And Trump's not keeping his promise. And personally, maybe I'm a little bit of a war hawk sometimes, but I hope that he does, because these people deserve to be free, and I didn't want to end without mentioning that.
That being said, just like we said last week, our hearts are with you, Iran. We believe that you are doing this beautiful, amazing, powerful thing. We're on your side. We can't wait to watch everything you accomplish. We're rooting for you from Michigan. The end is in sight, and I think you guys are going to get there. Like, this is really cool to see. Every time I see a video where somebody's burning a hijab or walking around in spaghetti straps, fucking A right. Like, I can't wait to see you restored to your glory, that, like, you were fully westernized, fully enjoying your human rights in the 70s, and I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it in my lifetime.
And whatever happens, I, a Westerner, hope that the United States, Israel, and Iran become powerful friends in a westernized movement to fight everything that is subjugating the rights of women and gays and anybody who's not like those who seek to stamp us down.
Yeah, it's cool to hear a voice in that region for, I guess, what people would call Western values, but, like, honestly, it's cool to see a voice for gays, for women, for literacy, for higher learning, for choice. If you want to be a Muslim and wear a hijab, go ahead. If you want to be an exhibitionist and wear, like, a mini skirt and a crop top, go ahead. If you want to be a lesbian, politician, Mormon in Iran, go ahead. Like, I'm all for it. Like, you do you, let your flag fly, and cut down anyone who says you shouldn't.
And in this way, I'll speak for myself and not for Hannah. May God bless you and protect you.
I don't disagree with that. I don't pretend, personally, I don't presume to know what God is or what it means, but I'm on your side, and I hope anything benevolent out there would be as well.
And it's so funny, the Ayatollah, he had this tweet about God bringing down enemies, and I was like, I think this is gonna happen, but not in the way that you suspect. So I think God is on the side of the Iranian people. I think God's promise to people was freedom, and I certainly believe that the Iranian people deserve that, and I hope that by any means they get it soon.
All right, cheers, guys. Thanks for hanging into a long episode. Promise not to do this to you guys all the time, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think. We always want to hear your views, even if they're dissenting. And yeah, hang in there.
Send us your thoughts at redwhiteand@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.